to solve a system, we can put it into an augmented matrix, then use Gauss-Jordan elimination to find the solution. So the steps we got to do is to first put it into an augmented matrix, and then we're going to use row operations to change the matrix to reduced row echelon form, REF. So first we have this system of linear equations here, and we're going to put it into an augmented matrix. So step 1, put it into a matrix. So I'm going to put the first equation in as the first row. So 1, -1, 3, 4. Then the second equation is going to be the second row. 1, 2, -2, 10. And the third one is going to be the third row. 3, -1, 5, and 14. So when working to put this in reduced row echelon form, we have to have a diagonal here of 1s and everything around it to be 0s. Since this is a 1, makes life already easier because it's already a 1. But now I got to make everything below it a 0. So I'm going to make the first row a negative and then add it to the second row to get rid of this, and thus give me a new row 2. But I'm also going to multiply the first row by a -3, so when I add it to here it becomes 0, and then do it to the others to give me a new row 3. So it's going to be a negative row 1 plus row 2 to give me a new row 2, and then -3 row 1 plus row 3 to give me a new row 3. Since I'm getting a new row 2 and 3, I'm keeping row 1 the same, so I can just carry this first row over with no change. So 1, -1, 3, and 4. And now I can write in my new row 2 and row 3. So -1 plus 1 is 0. A -1 is a +1. Plus 2 is 3. A -3 plus a -2 is a -5. And a -4 plus 10 is a +6. +6, there we go. Now I'm going to do the same thing for row 1 to row 3. So everything's going to be multiplied by -3, so -3 times 1 is -3, plus 3 is 0. -1 and -3 is going to give you a +3, plus a -1 is 2. -3 times 3 is -9, plus 5 is -4. And then a -3 times 4 is -12, plus 14 is going to give me 2. So this is how my matrix has changed, which is good. Everything is zeros here, so going along just nicely. Now I'm going to change this and these two numbers to 1s to make my life a little bit easier later on. So I'm going to multiply this by a 1/3 and everything in the row as well, so that's going to be a new row 2, and then multiply this by a 1/2 and everything else in this row as well with that to give me a new row 3. So 1/3 row 2 for a new row 2, and then 1/2 row 3 for a new row 3. And since I'm getting a new row 2 and 3, row 1 stays the same. So 1, -1, 3, 4. And now to get my new row 2 and 3, 0 times 1/3 is 0. 3 times 1/3 is 1. -5 times 1/3 is -5/3. And 6 times 1/3 is 2. And now for row 3, 0 times 1/2 is 0. 2 times 1/2 is 1. -4 times 1/2 is -2. And 2 times 1/2 is 1. Looking good. Now that I have this as a 1, I'm going to multiply this by a -1, this entire row, and add it to row 3 to get a new row 3. So negative row 2 plus row 3 gives me a new row 3. That means row 1 and 2 stay the same. So 1, -1, 3, 4, 0, 1, -5/3, 2. And now for my new row 3. 0 and 0 is just going to be 0. -1 plus 1 is 0. A -5/3 is a +5/3. So +5/3 minus 2 is a -3rd. And then -2 plus 1 is going to give me -1. Now from here I'd want to make this a 1, but since the number right above it is in a fraction form in the same denominator, I'm going to keep it the same for this moment just to make the elimination a little bit easier. So I'm going to multiply this by a -5, thus making it a +5/3, add it to the -5/3 to get a 0. So -5 row 3 plus row 2 to give me a new row 2. So row 1 and row 3 stay the same. So 1, -1, 3, 4, 0, 0, -1/3, -1. And now 0 times -5 is 0 plus 0 is 0. Same thing here, added to 1 is also 1. Now -5 times -1/3 is a +5/3, and a +5/3 to a -5/3 is 0. And then -5 times -1 is going to give me a +5. +5 plus 2 is 7. And now I'm going to clear out the -1/3. I want it to be just a 1, so I'm getting rid of the fraction. So -3 row 3 for a new row 3. So rows 1 and 2 are going to stay the same again. So 1, -1, 3, 4. And 0, 1, 0, 7. And then 0, 0, because anything multiplied by 0 is 0. And now -3 times -1/3 is a +1. -3 times a -1 is a +3. And so now we're done with row 3. So things are looking good, but I still got to get these last two entries here to be 0. So I'm going to multiply row 3 again by a -3 and add it to row 1 to get a new row 1. So -3 row 3 plus row 1 give me a new row 1. So that means rows 2 and 3 stay the same. So 0, 0, 1, 3, 0, 1, 0, 7. And now 0 times -3 is 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 times -3 is 0 plus -1 is -1. 1 times -3 is -3. -3 plus 3 is 0, so that's good. And then -3 times 3 is -9. -9 plus 4 is -5. So we're in the home stretch. Everything we've done except for one more entry. We got to make this -1 0. And since I have a 1 here, and they're the same numbers but opposite signs, I can just add row 2 and row 1 together to get a new row 1. That's what I'm going to do. Row 2 plus row 1 for a new row 1. So rows 2 and 3 stay the same. 0, 0, 1, 3, 0, 1, 0, 7. And now 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 plus a -1 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. then 7 plus negative 5 is 2. And there is my matrix in reduced row echelon form. So my solutions are x equals 2, y equals 7, and z equals 3. So 2, 7, and 3 are the solutions to this system of linear equations.